Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone. My name is Kathy. As the founder, the host, the writer, the producer of the Indie Zone podcast entitled Idaho versus Kohberger, we made a commitment at the start of that podcast series to go through and curate the entire docket, which we have done. We've looked at every single item that was published on the court docket and also provided some opinions regarding items that were under seal amongst the many that have been under seal since the beginning of the case, and thought that the journey was coming to an end for that podcast because the jury trial was scheduled to happen in August of 2025, and then came the news that the jury trial was canceled on July 2nd, 2025, because Mr. Kohberger pled guilty to the 5 counts that were brought against him by operation of the indictment, which surprised a lot of people. And unfortunately, because the jury trial was canceled, the public did not have the opportunity to see what evidence the state insisted that it had that would meet the beyond a reasonable doubt evidentiary standard for 12 members of a jury to convict Mr. Kohberger, and also to possibly subject him to the ultimate capital penalty. And by the other hand, we were anticipating that we would see the defense, through cross-examination and possible presentation of witnesses, show us that he was not guilty, or that the evidence was not there to convict him at beyond a reasonable doubt. The two parties for so long were at opposite ends of the spectrum, with one stating he was absolutely the sole and the correct defendant, and then the other side stating that not only was he not, but he was factually innocent at times. So what happened on July 2nd surprised a lot of people. Our commitment with the continuation of both the podcast and the content that we provide here on YouTube is to try to look at the evidence. And this has been a very difficult task because so much of the evidence, which is the discovery that you hear about in the case, is under seal. It's still under seal. Fortunately, today, we're starting to see some evidence be unsealed, as the court has finally released a few of the documents that have been under seal in the case. And one is, I believe, important because it is a report that addresses hair that was collected to see if there were any matches to Mr. Kohberger. First, let's look at what this report says. And this is a report that you can read in its entirety. It's on the court docket today. It is a report by the feds. So this is a State of Idaho report. And what it tells us, I've gone to the page in question dealing with hair samples. It says here, items submitted from Ethan, Kaylee, Zana, and Madison, and from 1122 King Road, were examined for hairs microscopically consistent with hairs in the head hair sample, which was taken directly from Mr. Kohberger. However, there were no matches that were found. That's paragraph 1. This is evidence. Secondly, items submitted from 1630, this is the address of Mr. Kohberger's apartment, were examined for hairs consistent with hairs in the head hair samples from Ethan, Kaylee, Zana, and Madison. However, no hair samples from the 4 students were found in Mr. Kohberger's apartment. And then finally, it says here, animal hairs consistent with dog hairs found in item 61 are microscopically dissimilar to hairs in the dog hair sample from Murphy. Item 44. Accordingly, Murphy cannot be included as a possible source of these hairs. However, it does go on to say, an animal hair consistent with cat hair found in item 26 is of limited value for meaningful microscopic comparison purposes and has been preserved for possible future comparisons. So it appears, at least in giving my opinion, speculation here, that the hair that some were saying was possibly Murphy's hair that was found at Mr. Kohberger's apartment after it was searched in December of 2022 was not Murphy's hair. That was a false rumor. We're going to continue to go through the evidence, as hopefully it will continue to be released to the public, to determine what the evidence tells us. Not what either of the sides told us, the attorneys, not even the judge, but what the evidence in this case has said, per our opinions, our comments, and our speculation. If you have any comments, any thoughts, any speculation that you would like to add here relative to this matter, please do so. Until next time, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.